community. Welcome, welcome. I know there should be some people in it. 14 people already registered. So I won't be able to wait any longer. All right, here we go. So welcome to the Integrated Intellect Homeschool. This is our second information session so that I can better explain our program and everything else. All right. So the Integrated Intellect Homeschool has two paths, but it has one goal. It is every child's success. So the problem that we're trying to solve is that parents today are overwhelmed. Totoo yun. Aminin natin. So, traditional schools don't fit every child. Nararanasan na natin yan because maybe we're getting more informed about how all these things happen. At nararamdaman natin sa mga anak natin na medyo hindi na relevant yung school. Ayan. Neurodivergent kids, kids with autism, um, ADHD, dyslexia, and the like are often misunderstood. Much more than misunderstood, they are sometimes even um, parang isolated because hindi sila maka-adjust sa program ng typical schools. Even neurotypical kids struggle with rigid systems. I know for a fact that meron akong, kasi sa Apex Schools dati, ang aming grading system ay 60 for performance task, 40 for exams. Pero dahil sa rigid talaga yung DepEd, gusto nila, masunod sila in every private school. So, parang nahati pa yun sa tatlo. Meron pang written work, meron pang ano. So, parang may 25% pa from the performance task na kinuha para sa written work. So, we have to follow that. And parents feel unprepared to teach at home. Kasi nga, sometimes, sa mga parents naman, they are not really teachers. So, yon. And the good news is, you're not alone. There is a better way. And that is the TIIH way. Our solution, a parent-led guided homeschool program. So hindi lang kayo basta bibigyan ng mga materials o bahala na kayo dyan, parents. Hindi ganon kasi we will train you, we will see to it that you know how to implement the lesson guides. Ayan po. So we combined a structure so parents don't get lost, flexibility so kids can thrive, and coaching kasi more than our children na may neurodivergence or even neurotypical, parents are parang gems, no? National treasure na kailangan natin silang pangalagaan kasi without them, without their mental wellness, paano sila makakaayos ng mga batang katulad ng mga anak nila. So, kailangan may support ang bawat isa. Mas importante na we support each other. Yun yung gusto naming parating sa lahat. Okay, so sabi nga natin, two paths kasi hindi naman natin pwedeng i-exclude ang mga neurotypical. Hindi tayo pwedeng mag-concentrate lang sa mga neurodivergent. So meron tayong neurotypical learners at meron din tayong neurodivergent learners. We have the same goal for each. Every child succeeds at their own pace in their own way. So, talaga seryoso natin yung sinasabi nilang individualized instruction ng Department of Education. Hindi biro. All right. What makes us different? Una, kasi we believe na we need to nurture our children. Ang parents talaga dapat yung may bond sa ating mga anak. Hindi lang sa paggala o sa pag-aaruga sa kanila kasi education, teaching them is also one way to nurture. We have a small structured learning approach. We focus on real understanding and not memorization. Emotional plus cognitive development ang ating focus din. Now, we run on a curriculum that I have made, kasi I am a curriculum developer for 7 years with the National Teachers College, Apex Schools. And this is what I came up with. So, ito yung mga features niya. Function before form. It prioritizes real-life functionality over traditional academic performance. Individualized and learner-centered. To the letter talaga, hindi biro. No? Sinasabi lang nila to sa mga ibang schools kasi yan yung sinasabi ng DepEd o yan ang gustong nila ideally. Pero talagang sa atin ay implemented. Individualized siya at saka learner-centered siya. Nasa bata natin kung gusto niya mag-aral today, kung hindi niya gusto mag-aral today, maybe later, maybe tomorrow. Ganon. Pero we are also a structured, administration, implementer of the curriculum, kaya meron din tayong target dates. Okay? We have integrated core domains. Hindi lang basta math, science, PE, health, ganon. Kasi sa atin, sa neurodivergent natin na curriculum na to, ng Integrated Functional Learning Framework natin o IFLF, we complement the academics with life skills and vice versa. O, napaliwanag ko na to sa mga ibang magulang. Ibig sabihin, we want our kids, neurodivergent siya, autistic siya, level 1, level 2, level 3, doesn't matter. They still need to know where to cross the street. If ever something happens, would they be able to take care of themselves na napahiwalay sa inyo, pumunta kayo ng fair? Ano yung fair sa Pilipinas? What do you call them? Yung mga Enchanted Kingdom, ganyan. Alam ba nila kung saan sila pupunta? So yun ang gusto nating malaman. Gusto nating mangyari sa kanila. They would be independent in the near future kasi we're trying to teach them now functional skills na kailangan nila to survive in the neurotypical world. Communication first is a priority. So pag nonverbal, hindi ibig sabihin hindi siya kasali kasi meron siyang way of communicating and we're going to get to that later on kung paano yung approach natin dyan na galing pa ng Australia. Regulation before instruction. Hindi katulad ng neurotypical school na, oh, good morning class, let's get ready, let's read this. Sa atin, hindi. Homeschooled na nga tayo, tapos nagmamadali pa tayo. We have to really regulate muna the nervous system of our neurodivergent child bago tayo magsimula. Context-based learning. It replaces abstract drills. X plus Y minus ganto-ganto. Medyo hindi tayo dyan masyado sa algebra at ano na yan. Although, depende yan sa bata natin kasi individualized. Kung ang bata natin may autism o gifted o twice exceptional at type na type nilang algebra, then we will, roll up the red carpet and put all the X and Y's and let them do it. Kasi yun yung genius nila. Hindi katulad sa sa neurotypical schools or traditional schools, may bata nakita ko very enthusiastic siya sa history. And then he tells the teacher, "Teacher, mali naman yung sinabi mo. Ganito yung nangyari nung panahon na yon." Aba, hindi siya iintindihin ng teacher kasi ayaw siyang pakinggan ng teacher. Hindi ganon. We need to look at our child and make that child thrive in whatever environment that is appropriate for them. Hindi pwede yung tayo yung nag-i-impose kasi iba ang wiring nila. It is parent-led kasi kayo ang nakakaintindi unang-una sa mga anak ninyo unless hindi ninyo talaga sila inalagaan since the start. Kasi pag mami ko kasi nakakaintindi, then your mom, the grandmother, or maybe yaya niya kasi nakakaintindi, then we will have to put them all in a circle and let's sit down and talk on how we can make this child thrive. Yun ang keyword, to thrive. There is mastery-based progression. So it ensures learners move forward based strictly on demonstrated understanding. Hindi yung sa isang, traditional school when the teacher says, "Do you get it? Do you understand?" Everybody says yes. Pero may 3, 4, 5 doon na hindi nakakaintindi. Flexible output and assessment. Sabi ko nga sa isang example ko, if your kid is 4 or 5 and ASD siya, level 2, kunyari, doesn't know how to do potty yet. If throughout the first quarter, nakapag-potty siya, that is performance task. Pero may 4 or 5 na ASD level 2 na potty trained na. So hindi pwede yung performance task nitong bata na isa ay performance task din ng bata na isa. Kasi magkaiba sila. Kaya nga sabi ko sa inyo, it's so individualized na yung kailangan niya, yung genius niya, yun ang kailangan nating tignan. And we and teacher Jonah always meets every week so that we know for sure kung ano nangyayari. Pag si Teacher Jonah, halimbawa, kasi Teacher Jonah is assigned to one of our enrollees. Pero if a mom, we have one na deaf, I also talk to her weekly. I also have one that is an ID. She's 20 but she has like 14 years old yung utak. Di, we also talk every week, no? So ganon para alam natin kung nasa na ba tayo. I also have 3 more na ASD. Si Brianna, si Jay at saka si Lenlen. So these are all our students. It is differentiated, kanina ko pa pinapaliwanag, profile-specific tracks. It rejects a one-size-fits-all. Alam natin yan. All right, so it adapts its structure specifically to a learner's developmental profile. So it means that we have a profile that we can serve. Okay? So yung profile natin, sorry sa mga aso, is ASD and ADHD and or combined. It focuses on foundational to independent progression. So from hindi nakakapati to nakakatawid mag-isa. Ganon. Progression. Developmental progression, independence. Yun ang ating target. Down syndrome, it concentrates heavily on communication and routine-based learning and of course, adaptive functioning. We also have a twice exceptional program. It balances a dual focus on high ability strengths and specific support needs. Kasi most of the time, twice exceptional kids, kung hindi kayo familiar, may ASD siya. Pero genius siya ng musician. Mula umaga hanggang gabi, nagva-violin siya. Kailangan niya rin ng mga ibang mga bagay-bagay. That kid who is twice exceptional needs to read, needs to comprehend what she's reading, also needs to do math, kahit ayaw niya. Because these are life skills. Kung hindi ka marunong magbasa, paano malalaman kung anong signboard ng jeep? Diba? Yun. So, talagang kailangan practical tayo. We're very relevant. Sinasabi nila, relevant ang education namin. Walang kasing relevant sa curriculum namin. And then, there are gifted learners as well. Ang gifted learners kasi, they're geniuses, di ba? Yung neurotypical geniuses talaga, hindi sila twice exceptional katulad ng mga iba nating mga profiles. Yung gifted learners kasi, they're getting bored inside a traditional classroom kasi sobrang alam na nila lahat ng mga tinuturo ng teacher. Pwede na nga silang maging teacher, no? So, iba dapat yung nila, yung environment, iba yung curriculum nila, iba yung pinag-aaralan nila. It would be something that would really create, maybe scientists in the near future, maybe even solve some problems of our society. And then, our growth or goal is a holistic kind of progress. All around. Emotional intelligence, everything. So it is a feat that I need your help with. Because these are all inside my head. Diba? This is, I want this implemented. Pero without your help, parents, no? Teachers, I won't be able to do it. So, importante na um, we have this holistic growth. Okay? So, everything all around. Now, I have to be very clear with this. Our umbrella organization is Home Life Academy. So, ang ating lahat-lahat ng babayaran ay 39,000 pesos. So, everything is handled by us. Registration natin sa HLA kasi every family, every kid has to be registered sa HLA. Bukod pa yung registration ng organization natin, ng school natin. And then the materials, and then there's always the webinar every month. Naka-ano naman yan? Anong tawag dito? Naka-divide. Okay. And then, option 2 is, there is parang a mom who asked me yesterday na, ang HLA ho kasi ay hindi recognized ng DepEd. Which is true, kasi international homeschool yon. Sabi nga niya, when I submitted our curriculum for neurodivergence sa DepEd, hindi nila gusto kasi hindi siya aligned sa competencies ng SNED nila. So, pinababago sa akin. Well, as a person with ADHD, hindi ko talaga yan babaguhin. Because this is what I want. This is what I want our children to be in the future. Kasi kung susundin ko yung SNED, what is the point? Diba? Ba't napa-private school pa kayo? Napa-homeschool pa kayo? Kung DepEd lang din pala, you will pay me what? 39,000, 33,000, and then it's the same thing as SNED? I will not do that. Para saan pa? Diba? So, if you want to be with Homeschool Global and other umbrella organizations, gusto nyo lang yung curriculum ko, edi 33,000 ang inyong tuition fee. Para meron kayong choice of an umbrella organization. Doesn't matter to me. What matters to me is your child. What matters to me is kung ano yung mangyayari sa mga anak ninyo. So, this is a comparative analysis of SNED versus IFLF. So, the core philosophy ng SNED is form before function. While sa atin, function before form. So, magkabaliktad tayo. Pacing in progress. Sa DepEd, syempre, it's time-bound, grade-bound, while we are mastery-based and flexible. So, sabi nga ng isang enrollee natin na mami, 2 weeks kasi ang natin, allotted time for one lesson guide. Sabi niya mabilis ang anak niya, so okay lang na mabilis. Walang problema. Basta nakikita na may progression. Hindi katulad sa traditional school na, teka muna, ba't mabilis ka? Diba? Subject structure. Isolated subjects, learning is still divided into academic periods, while sa atin, integrated core domains. The starting point, instruction first sa DepEd, while sa atin, regulation first. Pag yan ay nagsisteam, yan ba naman gusto mong turuan, hindi kayo magkakaintindihan. How output is measured. Sa DepEd, syempre, may standardized assessment. Sa atin, flexible ang output. Katulad nga ng example ko kanina. And we have neurodivergent profiles na iba-iba. From ADHD to ADHD, ASD, gifted, twice exceptional, and Down syndrome. Meron pa nga tayong special na because this kid had a accident. So his mom is thinking if mapapa-enroll niya because, and then I made him a special curriculum because yung kalahati niya na katawan is being physical therapy. They're going through physical therapy because he went through a very bad accident. So yon, yarn. Okay. Now, for neurotypical naman, ito yung ating ino-offer. Just the normal matatag curriculum under DepEd. So, but our approach is Finland-inspired. So, hindi tayo yung, magtanim kayo dyan ng munggo. Pagkatapos ng isang linggo, tignan nyo kung tumubo bang munggo, naging toge. No. We go out, we experience nature, because that is Finland. Ganon yung gusto ng Finland. So, we don't just teach kids, we train you parents. We have structure guidelines, parang naulit ng slide na to. Okay. Coaching support. If you need help, you just call on me and Teacher Jonah, then we can do it together as a unit, as one collaboration for our children. Step-by-step system, and then you become confident in teaching your child. Now, what you get when you enroll, it's a structured homeschool program. It has parent training. It has coaching support. It has a clear academic pathway. Hindi nanghuhula. Like, nagtatanong ako sa mga groups minsan. So, may tutor kayo para maturuan ninyo ang anak nyo. Pero wala naman sila talagang curriculum. So, anong curriculum? Tinatanong ko. Pero wala naman sumasagot sa akin. Okay. So, I think that ends my part. Now, we are going to look at the director of Arrowsmith School. This is a free recorded lecture. This is about neuroplasticity. Let's listen to Debbie Gilmore.
Thank you so much, Ms. Chi, for inviting me to speak to your beautiful community today. I'm really excited to be able to do this short presentation for you. I'm sorry I can't be there in person or virtually. So I hope that this presentation introduces a concept about the brain, about neuroplasticity, and I'm sure you have lots of different questions, and I'm more than happy to receive those questions via email after this presentation. So let's get started. And as you can see on this slide, and the title I have given this presentation is called The Brain, Our Most Important Asset. It is really very exciting to talk about the brain. We don't often do it in our lives. And so I get the joy of being able to give you some information about the brain and how we can harness the ability to change our brain. So here we go. I do want to start with, what do we want for our children? I think, I'm an educator and have been for a long time, over 40 years now, and very focused on our children and how we can make lives better, how we can make their lives better. And the World Health Organization said that these qualities that I have here on the screen are what creates good mental health. So what do we want for our children? We want them to realize their full potential. That full potential is different for everyone. No child can be compared to another. But we want each child to fulfill their own potential. We want them to cope effectively with the normal stresses of life. Life is stressful. And though we need to be able to cope with those stresses. We want them to be productive and fruitful in their community and make a contribution. And we want them to feel fulfilled, and we want them to have a really good sense of well-being. And of course, to be a great human being, we need to be empathetic and compassionate. And all of those things together, as I said, the World Health Organization has said, this is a definition of good mental health. And of course, all of those things that I just talked about, all of those start with the brain. Why does it start with the brain? Because the brain is complex. The brain is very, very powerful. And it's absolutely amazing. If you think about it, we have the ability to shape our brains, and our brains also shape us. So there's this interaction of where, our brain is changing all the time just with what we do each day. And that makes us who we are. How we interpret the world makes us who we are. But the beautiful thing about the brain is that we can also change it. So just like our founder, Barbara Arrowsmith Young, says here in this quote, just as our brains shape us, we too can shape our own brains. I quite often think when I wake up in the morning, I just get up and do the chores. I turn off the alarm. I choose what I'm having for breakfast. I think about what is going to be in my day, and I get about organizing my day. I'm sure you do the same, very similar things when you wake up in the morning. Do any of us stop to think that it is our brain that is helping us get through all of those activities that we have each day? Probably not, but it is. And any task that we need to do in our day, whether it be very, very simple, like turning off the alarm clock, to very complex pieces of work that we might need to do for our employment or for the family, our brain is working to help us complete those tasks. And what's happening in the brain when we complete those tasks? Well, there's a series of highways and stations or networks or connections in the brain that come together to help us complete those tasks. Every set of tasks we have use different networks or a different combination of networks. So next time you are turning off the alarm, tying your shoelaces, or doing something very complex, try to stop and think, oh boy, my brain is making me or helping me do these tasks. We have many, many different networks in the brain. These are just some of them. And these are the networks, we have networks for memory, for executive function, that part of our brain that helps us plan and organize. We have networks for decision making. We have networks for language, for mathematics, for art, for writing. We have networks for socializing with our friends and our family. We have networks for finding our way around the city, even around our own homes. We have networks to take notes in a meeting. We have networks for managing our household tasks. We have networks for managing our family's calendars, which sometimes can be quite complex. I'm sure you know that. So those networks come together. They bring this concept of cognitive functions together to complete those tasks. The cognitive functions are all individual, but then come together in a network. So our work at Arrowsmith really focuses on the cognitive functions of the brain. Now, there are many, many, many different cognitive functions of the brain. Here are 10 of them. So let's have a look at these. We have cognitive functions, for auditory memory that helps us retain information that we've heard. We have a cognitive function that helps us with scheduling and budgeting. And that's also the cognitive function that is responsible for mental calculation of number. It's like the calculator in our brain. We have a cognitive function that is also used for motor plans. So what do we use motor plans for? We use motor plans for writing, for typing, for driving. We use motor plans when we read because our eyes track across the page. We have a cognitive function that for visual memory, so remembering details like objects, places, and faces. We have a visual memory function that's necessary for reading and writing patterns and or spelling patterns, so those symbols. We also have a cognitive function that helps us read nonverbal cues. You know, when we might enter a room and we're looking around and we're working out how to enter that room, how to react um, or interact, that's a different cognitive function. And I mentioned this earlier, we also have a network for executive function. So that planning and organizing in language, how to complete tasks. We have a really important cognitive function that helps us understand, comprehend, grasp relationships, reason, critically think. We have a different cognitive function that helps us with phonemic awareness. So understanding how the symbols form sounds. And then we have a different cognitive function that helps us encode language for expression. And these are just 10. There are many, many others. But these are probably what we see in our work, probably some of the most important cognitive functions that we need in our daily lives to get through our day. One of the things we like to do at Arrowsmith is think about this concept of a cognitive lens. So think about tasks, a bit like what I just talked about. Think about a task and think about it now with a cognitive lens. So I'm going to ask you now, think about these people. Do you have people like this in your life? Could be you, it could be your child or a partner or a family member or the person that you meet at the shop. Do you have a person who is socially awkward or rude? Sometimes we think, oh my gosh, we don't like that behavior. Do you have someone that finds it very difficult to understand someone else's point of view? Do you have someone in your life that's rigid and needs a routine every single day? Do you have someone in your life that can't tidy their room or find something in the fridge? Do you have someone that really finds it difficult to find their way around a map or use a map, or even if they're going to a familiar place? Do you find someone that can't follow instructions or won't follow instructions? We might think they won't follow instructions, but actually maybe they can't. And do you know someone that can really tell fabulous stories? But then when you ask them as a teacher or a parent to write them down, you only get one little sentence or two little sentences written down. Do you know someone that can read really well, but when you ask them what the story is about, they can't tell you? Well, the interesting thing is that what I just spoke about is what we see as human to human, individual to individual. This is what we see. But what's happening in the brain? We have all of those cognitive functions at very different powers. So we have some that can be really strong and some that are underperforming. And what we know is that we all have unique cognitive profiles. All our brains are very different, just like our fingertips. Fingertips. Our fingerprints. They're all very different. And so our brains or these cognitive functions work together. Some can be at strength and some can be weak. Quite often, if we have a task that we know is really easy, those cognitive functions used for that task or that network that's being used they're probably working at strength. But sometimes you need to do a task that's a little bit challenging. So when you feel that challenge, there's probably something there, some cognitive functions that are working well, but you're needing to call on a cognitive function that's underperforming. So that task is a little bit challenging. Or you might be asked to do a task that actually you can't do, and you need to get someone else to do that for you. So probably what's happening there in the brain is that there's cognitive functions that are underperforming. And so it makes that task not only challenging, but you give up. So it's a nice way to view how we perform, how we operate in our regular everyday lives by having that cognitive lens. I think it's a beautiful way to see individuals rather than seeing behavior or performance. We see them very differently. I thought you might be interested in understanding how these cognitive functions come to work in academics. So for your children, when they're asked to read or write or do mathematics, I thought you might be interested in that. So this is what it looks like. So when we read, we bring together, as I said, different combinations of cognitive functions to undertake the task of reading. Now, the thing is, and it would be a combination of these ones. The thing is, it depends what task of reading we're doing. We could be reading silently in our mind, so we wouldn't be having auditory speech discrimination, for example, being used in that. However, we might be being asked, or our children might be asked, to read out aloud. So if we're reading out aloud, auditory speech discrimination definitely comes in. So does kinesthetic perception. So does Broca's pronunciation. They come into play in those instances. If we're reading silently, they don't. We've got motor symbol sequencing there because in a task of reading, we need to eye track. So that's really important. It's a very important motor pattern that we have and automated. I'm sure when you read, you don't even think about your eyes tracking across the page. But actually, some people find that difficult. And so that it's really laborious to read in those instances. So these are the combination of functions that come together for reading. Now, there's no test, of course, and Miss Chi won't ask you questions at the end of this. But what I want you to do is take a look at these colors or these words here on the page, whatever is easiest for you, because some of them are going to come up in the next slide. So have a look. So what's involved in the task of writing? Here are the combinations, here are the cognitive functions that combine to do a task of writing. So you'll see again that these cognitive functions, some of them came up in reading, and here they are again in writing. So thinking that we all have these different cognitive profiles, think about some of these are strong and some of these are underperforming. If they're underperforming in reading or they're performing well in reading, the same cognitive functions are going to perform well in a writing task or they're going to underperform in a writing task. So it's not just that, it's a reading problem or a writing problem. Actually, it's a problem with the cognitive function. It's underperforming. It's not that you're fantastic at reading or you're fantastic at writing. No, it means that those cognitive functions are really performing well. So what about mathematics? What's happening there? Some of the cognitive functions are the same. Now, sometimes we hear, oh, I'm really good at maths, but not in reading or not in English or not in language or vice versa. Actually, if the cognitive functions are strong, they will be strong in all of the different tasks. If they're weak, then they'll be weak in all of the different tasks. Now, because these cognitive functions work together in a network, you might have enough strength in mathematics to really go okay. But if you're using a different combination of cognitive functions in a different mathematical task, you might find that task challenging. So again, some of these will be strong, some are likely to be weak. I can promise you that not all of us have all of our cognitive functions working in supercharge. We have them along this scale. You'll see there on the bottom of this slide that there's a scale that they work along. And so they can be really superior or really very severe or somewhere along there. So depending on how each cognitive function is operating, and that combination comes together, tells us if a task is easy or challenging. We had a researcher have a look at some of the assessments that we've done at Arrowsmith, and he analysed 1,452 learning profiles, and he found that more than 70% of those profiles were unique, and we didn't even give him all of the data. So I'm pretty certain we're safe to say that our cognitive profiles are all individual. So just before I finish up, I thought I would use this same concept of cognitive functions and looking underneath. So just like I looked under, the reading and writing and mathematical tasks and what cognitive functions are being used there, let's do it now with diagnoses. Now, we all know that a diagnosis is given because a professional sees usually a child, can be an adult, but sees a child perform a task, interacts with a child, and then they observe that behavior and make a really professional assessment of that particular child or adult. And though they're very global assessments, what we like to do at Arrowsmith is go underneath the label. That's what we call it. Go underneath the label of those assessment, of those diagnoses, and look at the cognitive functions that are involved here. So a bit like I did with reading, writing, and mathematics, let's have a look at these. Underneath the label of dyslexia, usually a difficulty with reading. It can have some other aspects attached to it, but here are cognitive functions that are required for reading. We also already looked at some of these in the last one. I think I had 10 up in my last slide. So here's a combination of 7 that could be underperforming in a diagnosis of dyslexia. Some may be very strong, but some may be weak as well. And if the critical functions are underperforming, then you're likely to have challenges in reading. Let's have a look at dyscalculia. Here are the cognitive functions required to do mathematics. Some of them, remember I had a few more in my slide before. And if some of these cognitive functions are underperforming, and depending on the degree or the number or the quantity of functions that are underperforming, a child or an adult might get a dyscalculia diagnosis. The same with dysgraphia, the writing ability to write clearly and precisely and quickly. These combinations of cognitive functions need to be used in that task. So if any one of these is underperforming, then they could get a diagnosis of dysgraphia. Here's memory difficulties. Wow, look at all of these. Now, if you remember at the beginning of my presentation, I said there's auditory memory, there's visual memory, there's lots of different memories. And you'll know this in your own life too. You might have a really good memory for numbers, but you might not be able to remember, a set of instructions. Very different. Because why are they different? Because you're using different combinations of functions, or the networks are different that you're using. So here's some of the cognitive functions that help us with different types of memory. and executive function. Now, I don't want to go into a long explanation because I have a whole presentation on this, but the executive function is your prefrontal cortex, the two functions here in your left and right. That is nonverbal thinking on the right and symbolic thinking on the left. So planning and organizing in non-language and planning and organizing in language. But the executive function can't perform by itself. It needs to call on other cognitive functions to help complete a task or plan to complete a task. Two of the most critical functions the executive function will call on are symbol relations and predicative speech. Now, on our website, you can have a look at and get definitions of these functions. But yeah, so that's like an explanation, a very short explanation of executive function and what is involved there. Here's attention. Attention, again, is in the prefrontal cortex. The attention control networks or the brain networks that are located in the prefrontal cortex help us attend and engage. But at Arrowsmith, we have a little bit of a different view on attention because we see a lot of children and adults that have what we call a cognitive load. So if you think about some of those other diagnoses that I talked about there, if you have a difficulty with memory, an auditory memory, and the teacher is telling you what you need to do and a series of steps, and if you have an auditory memory difficulty, then you're going to be asking someone else in the class, your buddy, you're going to be saying, what do I have to do? I can't remember what we have to do. A teacher sees that behavior and thinks they're being inattentive. Or you could have a task where the child has to read the instructions, but actually their comprehension is poor. So that's the symbol relations cognitive function. So if the comprehension is difficult, they can read the words, but they can't understand what it is. So the child might go and find a buddy again, or go and ask the teacher and say, can you explain this to me? The teacher might think, well, you weren't paying attention. I've just talked to you about this. Or I've given you the task. Go and read the task. You're not paying attention to the task I gave you. So this is the example of what a cognitive load might be. So we have, we could have memory difficulties or sequential thinking or mental calculation difficulties, understanding difficulties or processing difficulties. And they show up as inattentive behavior. So, but what we know is if we strengthen that cognitive load can go away. And how can it go away? By the power of neuroplasticity. All along in this presentation today, I've talked about the power of the brain to change. We absolutely can change. Remember right at the beginning, I said our brain shapes us, but we have the ability to shape our brain. We have the ability to focus on our brain intentionally to improve it. That's the power of neuroplasticity. That's what neuroplasticity is. The brain's ability to change its physical structure and its functional organization to form new neural network connections. And the good thing is it's throughout our lifetime. It's not just for children. All across our lifetime, this can happen. Oops. The concept of neuroplasticity is neutral. It's neither good nor bad. But the concept that we have to remember is we have control and the brain will adapt to what it does most. So if you think about these two concepts together, the neuroplasticity is neutral. It's neither good nor bad. And the brain will adapt to what it does most. You can work that and say, okay, if I'm doing something over and over and over again, that is good and that's going to help my brain, we're using neuroplasticity in a positive sense. But if you are doing something over and over and over again that rewires the brain in a negative way, then that can be a negative outcome of neuroplasticity. Now, that's all I'm going to say about neuroplasticity. We have the ability to change. There's certain principles on which it can change. I'm going to put here, you might want to take a photo of this while this slide is up right now. But on our website, we have a guide to neuroplasticity. So you might be very interested in reading that. And it goes into a lot more depth of understanding in terms of what neuroplasticity is. And on our website also, which is on here on this slide, there's lots and lots of information about what that might, about, all of what I've talked about today. And in our book section also, there are a number of books that you might be interested. The one that's on here now called Brain School and The Brain Pioneer actually are PDFs, so you can download those ones. The Brain That Changes Itself, um, uh, and The Woman Who Changed the Brain books for purchase and not on our website, but also The Brain That Changes Itself by Norman Doidge has chapter 2, which is on the work of Barbara Arrowsmith Young. And Barbara Arrowsmith Young is the author of The Woman Who Changed Her Brain. So that's it. It's been delightful to present this for you today. And I really look forward to receiving any questions you may have. And please let Miss Chi know and she'll get them off to me and I can send you responses. Thank you again for asking me to come along today and be part of your meeting. And I look forward to perhaps meeting you another time. Thanks so much.
All right. So that is Miss Debbie Gilmore, and we're very privileged that she's here. Well, not really here, but um, she's with us. She was able to send us the recording. All right. So, moving on, we are proud to share that we are now officially running a foundation dedicated to serving the neurodivergent community and their families. Our immediate heart-centered effort is focused on providing crucial special education and developmental assessments for our three chosen beneficiaries, ensuring they get the structural roadmap they need to thrive. So they're very marginalized, very poor families here in Nai, Cavite, and they are beneficiaries as per our Board of Trustees. Hang on. So we have upcoming milestones and initiatives from the Integrated Intellect Foundation. Our mission is number one, the benefit raffle draw. And then there's August 8th, that is the Autism Convention. Also, we are doing a registration for FDA so that we can help out because me and Debbie and also Connie De Prato of Lynn Beasley Academy of Australia, we believe that behavior is just a byproduct of what happens in the brain. So, kung ang problema natin, ang behavior ng anak natin, behavior man siya o anumang outward thing na ginagawa nila, minsan very quiet, minsan steaming forever, kung autistic sila or ADHD na hindi maka-focus, it all happens in the brain. So, ang dapat nating learning intervention, hindi kami clinicians, hindi kami doktor. Well, I am going through my doctorate, but that's not a medicine. That's a philosophy, doctor of philosophy for psychology and sociology at the International American University. Pero ang ibig ko bang sabihin, everything happens in the brain. So therefore, ang dapat nating i-target, na i-train, ay ang brain. So, also, naniniwala din kami sa Integrated Intellect Foundation at saka sa homeschool na everything is what we eat. Kasi yung kinakain ng mga anak natin, oh, alam natin, naiintindihan ko, oh, she's autistic, she doesn't want to eat anything except hotdog or chicken or naiintindihan natin yan. Kaya nga, gumawa kami ngayon ng formulation ng supplement. Itong supplement natin, talagang galing siya sa mga nutrients na kailangan nila. So we're going through that process now. Meron kami para sa ADHD, meron kami para sa autism, at meron din kami para sa adults na mga magulang na high blood na, na diabetes na dahil sa mga anak natin. Ayan. And so this is your call to action. Please enroll if you feel like we can collaborate, we can build this community together. So, you know our Facebook page, and this our contact number. This is our WhatsApp. So every child can learn. Not every system knows how to teach them. But the integrated intellect homeschool can. Thank you so much, everybody.